Thank you for joining. Welcome to Forge Partner Talks. This week, our episode focuses on transportation and infrastructure. I'm Sanjana Chand. I'm the Forge Developer Marketing Manager. At the end of today's panel, I'll be asking the questions you submit. So please feel free to send in any questions you like under the Q&A tab. This session will also be recorded. Now I'll hand it over to our host, Emily Sherbensky.
Thanks, Sanjana. All right, good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Thanks again for joining us today. As Sanjana said, my name is Emily Sherbensky, and I lead the Forge marketing team at Autodesk. Today's webinar is all around transportation and infrastructure. And we're going to shake things up a bit this week if you've seen some of our previous webinars. And we're starting off with an internal guest. We'll be interviewing Jim Quanci from Autodesk. He is a senior director here at Autodesk, and he leads the Forge Developer Advocacy Support Team. Then we're going to move over and talk to Frode and Jerry from Norconsult. Frode is the head of development at Norconsult, NoIS, and Jerry is a BIM strategist for infrastructure. So without further ado, let's jump right in with Jim. So Jim, I gave you a quick introduction. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your role and how long you've been at Autodesk?
So Emily, you're implying I've been here forever, which is half true. So yeah, I've been at Autodesk for 30 years, starting in the days when the only thing we talked about was AutoCAD. And I actually got pretty good with AutoCAD, but you know, long time ago in a faraway place. I have a team of engineers and business development people that work with our partners and our customers who use Forge and their desktop APIs. And we support people around the world. So, you know, our other guests, Frode and Gjermund from Norconsult are one of a few thousand, though I won't say Norconsult is just one of a few thousand. You know, they're one of our best partners who really embrace technology as a way to deliver themselves and some of their customers competitive advantage.
Great. And then we've chatted a little bit about this before, but tell our audience a little bit more about the types of projects that you've recently seen customers looking at in this space, in the infrastructure space, in transportation. I know you have a lot of touch points with many different companies.
Yeah, sure. So if I go back 2 or 3 years, when we talked BIM, it tended to be about commercial office buildings. In Autodesk, really, it was 3 or 4 years ago. Well, BIM for buildings has been, you know, a topic for over a decade. But when it comes to infrastructure, it's really only been the last 3 or 4 years Autodesk has been kind of pushing on it. In the last 2 years, we're really starting to see customers get BIM for infrastructure. And we really see it coming from 2 different directions, both people trying to manage CapEx, so capital expenses, and people trying to manage OpEx, operating expenses. And they're 2 very different things. I think a lot of people who come from the design tools side think CapEx. So building new projects, new rails, new roads, new airports, which is good, but it's clear a lot of the expense, the cost, the time, a lot of the energy, if you're worried about sustainability, which we are on the operating expense side, and you know, more efficient running of operations. So this last 2 years we're seeing that. We're seeing road companies in well, I've seen them in Norway, Sweden, Denmark, China, United States, UK, you know, recognizing that they can do a better job, and you know they've been kind of managing roads in an old way. Rail's the same way. Dushban, Swiss Rail. There's a subway in southern China that they see this opportunity here to, yes, do a better job on the CapEx, building new projects, but to kind of dramatically change things on the OpEx side of things, the actual operations and maintenance.
Can you delve into what exactly is the old-fashioned way and what should be changing on that end?
Yeah, on the on the CapEx side of things, it just tends to be about better, more available information for a project and connecting cost systems, whether that's cost estimating or ERP, whether that's whatever you happen to be using, SAP, Microsoft Dynamics, Oracle, kind of whatever. Or project management systems, P6, also known as Primavera. As these systems have moved to the cloud, the ability to connect them and to present design information, alignments, vertical, horizontal, designs of new terminals, making them readily available to often it's politicians or bureaucrats in the government or the general population. So that's absolutely happening on the CapEx side. On the OpEx side, it's hooking up your models, building in the buzzword digital twins, but it's really about operations and maintenance to lower cost, lower real cost outlay, and frankly increase the quality of service. Whether the quality of service is in these days, so that terminals not overcrowded, or just being on time, not having downtime. Safety, and that is a quality of service thing. So we're absolutely seeing that. And again, integrations with existing, taking that model 2D, 3D, and integrating it with other systems. And maybe it's, for maintenance, maybe the customers, many are already using Maximo from IBM, or many other kind of maintenance systems that, again, people tend to call digital twins lately. So there's absolutely, transportation company in Australia now doing business in the US. They're going down this path. Belgium's going down this path. Now, it wouldn't surprise probably anyone. The German and the Swiss are, it's very disciplined kind of organizations. And they absolutely see the value in kind of automation and in tying systems together and doing a better job. And clearly, and I don't know where we're going to get to this, Emily. I'm going to let you lead the way. Norconsult, Frode, Gjermund are, they're one of the people kind of leading the way on what's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited to dive into their stuff. But before we do, Jim, talking a little bit more about how Forge helps specifically solution for these problems you just mentioned in the industry. How have you been seeing Forge work well?
Yeah, Forge is really glue. It allows you to tie systems together. So instead of having kind of siloed data and siloed information, it allows you to connect all the information, so you can make better decisions. So you're able to see on a simple web page schedule information, cost information, equipment information, kind of real-time video feeds, and you can get that all in a single environment. So it's easy to make a decision. Because what a lot of people have today is they have a security system, they have an operating system, they have a design system, they have a people management system, and they'll have 8, 9, 10 systems in the enterprise that they use across their business, but they're not connected. And when they're not connected, either things take too long to figure out, so kind of non-optimum decisions are made, or mistakes are made, because they just didn't have the information easily at hand, and it just takes too long, or too many different people need to get involved to kind of see the information to make better decisions. Making better decisions, maybe an emergency, in a station, maybe a crowd showing up in this day of COVID, at the airport, too many people at one time, and being able to identify that before too many people get packed in a small space. So being able to preemptive and being able to slow things down. I don't know, many of us have dealt with kind of stoplight systems at bridges and things to avoid crowds. And that same kind of thing becomes possible for many different kinds of transportation infrastructure, airports, rail, roads, kind of whatever.
And then one element that you kind of touched in and just making sure that the information is available and up to date is access to that information, both from mobile and web and kind of everywhere, right? Since it's now in the cloud and accessible.
Absolutely, on a web page. Now, I have several examples I can show when the time's right, but I want to make sure the folks at Norconsult get to show off some of the great work they're doing.
Okay.
And then maybe after that, I can go back and show a few more very specific. We'll go look at some websites that our audience can go to themselves and kind of check it out.
That sounds great. All right, so then we'll move away from you. Feel free to jump in as you'd like. I know you will, as we move over and talk to Frode and Jerry. So kicking off, just starting the conversation with Jerry, can you tell me a little bit more about Norconsult in general and the types of projects that you guys work on?
Yeah, sure. Norconsult is actually Norway's largest consultancy firm. So we have a main office situated near Oslo. We do approximately, it's around 20,000 assignments or projects each year for our customers. We do have a vision that we are going to do or solve the most difficult tasks. So we set the bar quite high. And we do projects within energy, within buildings, and of course, today's topic, infrastructure.
Great. Yeah. And so the project that I know you guys are going to share today is around a large infrastructure project you guys work on with the Norwegian road authorities. Can you tell me how you got started working on that and dive into a little detail about what they were looking for you to solve?
Yeah. Around the summer of 2018, we were involved in it's called a best value procurement. So, and we were involved to do a design build contract. So a contractor hired us to go into the dialogue and go in to build a project for the client in Norway. Going to share my screen as well.
Yeah, please.
And Norconsult were then hired as the consultancy firm or engineers, and the project is called the E39. So it's a part of a coastal highway route in Norway, and as you see on the right side here, the goals in general, or the big project, is to, of course, reduce emissions. We're going to create a new improved 4-lane highway, connect the regions, and the client has the goal of reducing zero fatalities and reduce injuries. So that's in general, like the scope is to do an actual project for an actual client. So yeah, that's the start of it.
So those are some pretty ambitious goals that they have there.
Yeah, so that's the project, and within the project, the client has set some high ambitions or for goals for us. So what we have in typically it's based off a UK standard. It's this BIM maturity level 3. So that means in general what you talked about, Jim, is connecting data. So that's one part of it, having up-to-date data, interoperability, connecting everything. But that's just one part of the different amounts. So it's BIM level 3, connecting things, and the client also wanted to include everything in BIM. So all the dimensions of BIM regarding 4D, costs, health and safety, and we just in general called it an XD project, like every dimension of BIM the client wanted. They set out and also wanted to doing drawing, less construction, design and construction. They wanted one source of information like a hub. And as you said, Jim, it's on a web. It should be a web viewer that also works offline, and it should connect everything and connect through multiple APIs. So they set the bar really high for us. Like they wanted to do everything and digitalize all the infrastructure in one project.
Absolutely. Is this the first or the largest type of project that you worked on in this space?
Probably not the largest regarding miles or kilometers, but of doing digital work, of course, it's like a milestone for us to be involved in this kind of project.
1,000 kilometers, though, that's a huge project.
Yeah. So one of the parts of this project from all the ways Norway is then 15 of those miles. It could seem like a small part of it, but 15 of those miles are with the highest kind of maturity level with BIM.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so this sounds like a very long list of goals. I want to jump into how you guys actually solve for them. So that might be moving over to Frode a little bit and saying how you guys solve for the customer needs and what solution that you built.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Well, we needed a web application, and in this part of the project here, it will be up to 1,000 models, and also it should be work on handheld devices and also in offline modus, as was shown here. And there was also lots of demands on functionality in the viewer as well. And Forge did meet many of those, but out of the box, not everything. So we had to write a lot of the functionality ourselves. So I will share my screen here, so I can give a short demonstration.
Be great.
So are you seeing my screen now?
I am.
Yeah, the project or the application is called ISY Projekt. We call it the ultimate project collaboration platform. So, and it's based on Forge. So, and here we have this is the models. This is set together with lots of different models. So I can select the various models here for our various people. And we have set it up here with different viewpoints, so it's easy to navigate to the correct place in the model. And also this was something we built before this was introduced in the Forge viewer. We create a section from the surface, but this is now a part of the standard model, so the viewer. So we will change that. But when we set this section out, it's a very valuable tool here for creating annotations. We can, like I do here, set out parameters that's on the elements. I set the MMI, that's the model maturity index. It's at the 200. That means that the concept is set. We also have other types of annotation that's possible to set. So this is like the height above sea level here. So this is sort of things we have done just to improve, so smaller things for them to improve the viewer. Also, there was a need to measure the area in 3D. That's not possible in the viewer today. So we made a simple tool here to measure, easy measure area in 3D. And also, we also made some integrations here with like was mentioned earlier, with other applications. This is documents that comes from SharePoint, and we have, it's like heat map, where they have this hotspots in the model where some of the documents will be geo-referenced and will be visible in the model like this, and with a tooltip, so it's easy to see where the various documents are located. We also made a very easy to use filter to filter out the correct information. And also to set the colors on the model based on this filter here. Again, we use the MMI to see that very easily displays how long the engineering, how far the engineering have come at this point, just with seeing the colors in the model. And also we have this 4D simulation where we integrate with the progress in the project, so that is also integrated into it. So this is just a very short display of what we have done here.
And that's awesome. In terms of how Forge helped build that solution, you guys used the viewer, you used model derivatives, data management, you used a lot of our APIs.
Yeah, we used of course the authentication and model derivative and the webhooks and the viewer.
Okay.
In our application here, we built it using C# and .NET Core, and the front end we used Angular to build the front end in this one, and also we used the microservice architecture. So the model, our model is its own microservice.
And then right here, all the integrations you guys set up using Forge. Is that right?
Yes, we did quite a lot of integrations, because that is one of the key points here, to have everything located in all information available in an application for the ones that needs the information. So we made SharePoint documents in the contractors SharePoint portal available. Also environment, health and safety issues are also made available with the same type of hotspots. And also the last thing I showed in the very short demo was they're using Microsoft Project for the planning, and we're visualizing this for the module that we have made.
Frode, what are you using for GIS?
The GIS, this is something we are working with now, and we used it in the SharePoint portal. We made an add-in to that one with a GIS, and we have our own GIS department that makes its own GIS tool, but it's based on open layers. So we have our own GIS tool.
Interesting.
And then I think you touched on a couple of challenges that you saw along the way, but can you kind of bring forward what the main challenges were as you worked on this very complex project?
Yeah, the main challenge was the sheer amount of data, how it's very large, very many models, and also the number of properties on each object. It's very large, so finding a very easy way to filter out and show only the necessary information, that was one of the main challenges. And I think we have solved it in quite a good way with a very easy to use filtering, and also to filter out in the browser, in the viewer, only the information that is valuable to the end user. And one of the other things that was quite difficult to do was the offline mode, because especially on handheld devices, because you have a limited amount of data that is available to the handheld devices. So but we get very good help from several people from Jim's team. We get it working using service workers. So now it do work quite well on handheld devices, and also on desktop computers and laptops in offline mode. And also sectioning was and is still not optimal, because when you set a section in using the standard section tools, you get this gizmo to move it, and that is placed in the middle of the bounding box of what's shown of the model, and that is sort of when you have a several kilometers or miles long model, the section gizmo is never where you really want it to be.
And when you're saying, sorry, just for my knowledge, when you're saying sectioning, you're talking about kind of breaking up the project into components of the road, or?
Yeah, no, setting a section, creating a section out of the in the 3D model, using the section tool in the viewer.
Yeah, so Frode, I got a question for you, because I mean, these are big public projects, governments, bureaucrats. How'd you deal with security? Did you have problems with, data sovereignty questions, that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, we have a login, so you have to have a user to get into this project. At the moment, we only have a project owner or manager and a BIM administrator that has extra rights to set things, but we are working on setting various roles, so we could have like a public role where everyone could log in, just make a user and see just a small part of what's available here. But of course, like if we were to include the pricing or something in here, that would be only for the very few to see those kind of data. So we are working on that now to have this access the roles and into the model.
Are you using SharePoint and kind of Active Directory and OAuth 2 for all of that, or do you handle that some other way?
I think we're going to handle this some other way, and not base it on one of those systems. That's so we have our own system that can handle it.
And then I also heard you. Sorry.
Yeah, in this case, our contractor wanted to use SharePoint, so that's one of the reason for integrating that part of it. Yeah.
Okay, I guess as a system integrator, you have to use whatever the client wants, and maybe it's SharePoint, maybe it's Active Directory on the cloud, maybe it's LDAP or one of these older standards.
Yeah.
Yes, and also we are still having a little bit of problem with the dimensioning. The people that want to set out dimensioning or measure in the model, that's still a little bit hard to do. So if I could come with a little wish here, it would be very nice if you make a section in the model, if you just could dimension on the section that is made, because that's sort of a 2D things that would make more sense for some people. So because it's when you have this model with lots of data, it's very hard to hit exactly where you want in the 3D model when you want to measure like the width of the road or the height from somewhere. So that's why we also made some of these parameters annotation tools, because then some of the measurements are in the objects, so we just add it as an annotation instead of measuring it out in a model.
I'm just thinking a lot of that information, and for most people, it's in a sheet, it's in a drawing. It's kind of not on the model. Yeah, I know you're big on, can we get rid of drawings? Do the whole thing with the model.
No, we don't want those.
I think I did a count. Yeah, it's probably some months ago, but we did cut, I think it was 90% of traditional drawings that were made for the construction site. So like small features, as Frode said, the annotations and other small stuff would ultimately cut even to the 10%. Yeah.
90% is a lot.
Hey, Emily, we have some interesting questions here. So how do you deal with drawingless construction with the supply chain? How do you get your subcontractors to buy in to using models?
One part of it is it's having our contractor, and they have actually made called deals or made their own contracts with the subcontractors. So they need to have the right tools. They need to have the possibility or show that they have the possibility to build without drawings.
Yeah, it does remind me.
The constructions on the project is, of course, also built without drawings. So it's a pretty long way for the contractor or subcontractor to do that as well.
Yeah, I know the aerospace companies, Boeing, Airbus, they've been doing drawingless for several years, but I guess we're all catching up.
Yeah.
There was another question here. Point clouds. Are you guys dealing with point clouds at all?
Not at the moment. There are made quite a lot of point clouds in this model, but the Forge Viewer out of the box does not handle point clouds. So we've been discussing if we should implement that ourselves, but we have a lot of other things that's prioritized before that. But it would be very nice to have the possibility to get in point clouds into the viewing, because then you can see the day-to-day progress in the building just by adding the point cloud into the viewer. But point clouds are usually very heavy, so yeah.
And that's exactly it, Frode, why Autodesk at this point hasn't added point cloud capability direct to the viewer. And we have probably, I don't know, 15 or 20 partners who do add point cloud capability to the viewer. But we haven't done it directly because it's, as you said, managing the point cloud, which could be terabyte, is a bigger challenge than actually viewing it.
I think the last question that Matthew asked was, how is progress on the site measured, captured, integrated into the viewer platform?
Oh, that's a big question.
That is a big question.
Yeah, one part is maybe you saw that in the video from Frode, was the blue stuff, or the blue layer that we put on the models within the LOD or maturity. So applying properties to the objects and may have the possibility to filter them and present what models are actually being built. That's one part of it. And the other part that's also connected to the integration with SharePoint. So you apply the different documentations that are uploaded into SharePoint and then connected back to the BIM models. So you could filter out the documents, see what kind of reports or assessments or surveying has been done to the object, and then get some kind of perspective of the progress.
And I've seen, you mentioned for project management, you use Microsoft Dynamics. Again, I've seen P6, Primavera. This is really, how many different ways are there to do 5D? And there's a lot, and there's not one way. I do think an important part of this is also that ability to have applications or websites, or maybe it's a native mobile app, and it's about mobile, being able to have easy access in the field. Where Autodesk has been investing heavily, acquisition of PlanGrid, where you get very lightweight applications that work well in the field, versus in the office where a lot of us have pretty sophisticated tools, and you can always walk down the hall if you need help. Well, before COVID, you could walk down the hall if you needed help.
You guys also used virtual robotics on the project, correct?
Yeah, we did apply some RPA, what's it called? Robot Process Automation. So that means virtual robots that go into our design tools like Revit and open it up like a normal user, and going in, download or get in the latest data that's been produced, and then doing, in this case, a lot of exports. So we needed to deliver IFC models to the solution and as a deliverable in the end. So the robots, the virtual robots, go into Revit, do export to IFC, and then we aggregate those into the forged model. So then we get high detail models with a lot of information, and that has the structure that we need to connect every other integration that we have made in this ISY project or Forge viewer.
Great.
So I think that the robot, it's at the moment it works like, I think it's 40 hours a week. So there are some manual work that needs to be done, but we have applied robotics to be efficient and free up manual work.
And it sounds like something you might continue to expand upon moving forward with other projects too.
Yeah,
it also reduces,
I would say
it also reduces errors when you use the robot, because it doesn't. Some of those works is kind of boring. So and the robot, it doesn't get that easily bored.
Nope, it doesn't.
And then it's, again, this last 3 months with COVID, we've had a few construction companies who were dabbling in real robots on construction sites for checking existing conditions, for doing QA kind of work, for validating work was done right, or level of completeness. And it was because the construction companies found they were limited. They were told you cannot have more than, maybe it's 150 people on a project, where in the past they might have 300. So every person they can eliminate being on site, they could add another person to the site getting work done. So that's been interesting watching our customers try these things that they knew about and that we had partners supplying those capabilities, but they kind of hadn't bit the bullet and jumped in. And with COVID, they're jumping in, and it'll be interesting to see over time whether those become kind of permanent features of the construction environment.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I want to loop back. Sorry.
I like the robot dog from Boston Dynamics. I think it's called Spot. I don't know if that's one they used or it's the other robots. Do you know that?
Spot's been in the discussion. Who's the folks with the tracked one, Emily? You've interviewed them before.
Scaled Robotics?
Scaled Robotics, yeah. We've seen them. We've also seen, if you could just Google it on the web, there's these office robots that were used for people who were going to meetings but weren't on site, and they just walk around the office. And they're actually, it's like 5,000 euros you can buy one. You could literally have one on every floor in a building on a construction site. And anybody can jump in, take control, walk to where they want to walk, look at what they want to look at, capture photos, zoom into specific areas. So people are being innovative about how they use some of that technology.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more relevant. So I just wanted to loop back quickly and kind of close out this project discussion on, were you guys able to meet the goals of the customer? They were very ambitious goals. And then what were the biggest benefits that the customer found from the solution you provided?
Should you
I could
answer
start
that,
off.
Jerry? Yeah, well, I can. We met the goals for this. There was a set of demands, and it got approved when we were done with this part of the project. So yeah, and I think the filtering is what is, and filtering out easily the most valuable, the most important information is what gets the most value
For the customer, being able to find the right information?
Yes.
Yeah, and having that single source of the truth, like everybody goes to this kind of online viewer and finds, of course, the models, but also find documentations and aspects of progress, and yeah.
I've got a question. You mentioned you won this big project based on value, not price. What does that mean?
There are different elements of doing the tender or the bid for this kind of projects. So one part of the best value, the procurement method, is evaluating the people that are involved, how you can give dominant facts of what you have been done before. So that would, in some respects or in some cases, be valued higher than a price. Or in some elements, the client sets a price that you need to meet. So if you go below, it's good and you get credit for that. But they set a ambition for the costs in some cases.
Okay, so this is about, we've all heard of especially big infrastructure projects where they overrun budget, they overrun schedule, and it's on the front page, so to speak, for all the public to be there and kind of throw stones at the politicians who are managing it. So kind of trying to avoid that, which kind of lowest price projects kind of encourage, almost lead to that naturally, those kind of problems. Yeah.
And there's in that respect, as an engineer and working for a contractor, they want to push us to be more efficient, doing optimization work. We did actually one optimization or parametric optimization on a bridge, and cutting, of course, costs, but also cutting 15% of CO2 emission with regard to concrete. So a lot of incentives for those guys in our project and working close to a contractor.
Cool.
And then with the cutting of the carbon emissions, I'm fascinated by the sustainability angle here a little bit. And is this something that, since it was so successful, will be repeated moving forward on your projects and your customers' projects? Do you see that becoming more and more important?
Yeah, in most of the new projects set by this client, there is a goal of reduced CO2 emissions. And of course, if you meet this goal, you need to set the ambition higher on the next project to be more dominant. So if you do reach 20%, you need to step it up even further on the next one.
So you're just raising the bar for yourselves, up and up.
Yeah.
No pressure. Okay.
I got another one. Norconsult, you're part of the division you're part of is kind of the IT services division within Norconsult. You do work for other customers, not just Norconsult?
Yes, Jerry, he is part of Norconsult and the infrastructure team, and I am in the Norconsult Information System. That's the IT company, daughter company. So we do, we make application for an entire life cycle of building and infrastructure projects, and also we make that. We have people that work with GIS and also machine learning and artificial intelligence. So we have a very broad spectrum of what we are doing. So we also sell software for competitors of Norconsult and also do development for them. But we also do, Norconsult being the largest, we of course do quite a lot together with them, and I think that was one of the things that makes us quite good at what we're doing, because we are working so closely with the engineer that's our hands-on with the actual problems that needs to be solved.
So if someone listening wanted to move quickly, because you've gone through Frode, I think we've been working together for 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Somebody wanted to kind of jump to the head of the line, they could work with you directly.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And you were just mentioning a bunch of buzzwords, AI, ML, things that are coming, kind of becoming more important. What other big trends, what are you seeing as kind of the next things on these infrastructure projects that our audience should be aware of and looking out for, and you guys are planning for?
From the design's point of view, doing more parametric design, of course, something that we see is coming already, but pushing like the limits of parametric design, not doing only one bridge or one construction, putting all the elements of the road, from light post, from sub-CSEs, from electronics to water sewer, everything in not maybe one script, but doing parametric design on everything and doing optimization on the costs, on the CO2 or other factors that we need to optimize on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and also,
so that's one part of it.
Yeah, and also when we get all this data here that's collected in one space, being able to use machine learning on those data to produce even better data, that's something that we see that would be coming. We are now working on more advanced filtering and also takeoff of information into the building, and there will be fit very nicely with machine learning in that. But first we have to just take out the information that is in the model. But in the future we certainly will look at using machine learning on, you get big data there and also get some real new very important data from all those.
Yeah, you know, Emily, can I do a screen share? Because I've got some examples both on the machine learning AI side, and you know, we've been talking a lot about CapEx, helping manage capital expenses, and there's some cool stuff. And again, I kind of don't like the word digital twin because it's kind of overloaded, but operations maintenance side, that's kind of just becoming possible for kind of infrastructure scale.
I think that would be great, but I think I'd like to just first address the 3 other questions that came in from our audience to make sure they're answered. So we have a question: how could you manage the huge polygon mesh of the models and manage to open on viewers?
We go through Navisworks here in these models, and Navisworks is quite good at making it possible. And also the Forge viewer actually is quite good at handling it, and it will be even better when this new OTG format or SVG2, is that what it's going to be called?
SVF2, yes.
SVF2, yes, that will be, could also make an improvement. There's not that, there's a lot of custom geometry here, so perhaps not that much in this particular model, but in general, it will make the viewer much easier. But Navisworks, I think that is one of the key factors here to making it possible.
I think the other thing is, you know, as Frode just said, you know, it used to be 2 kilometers of rail or highway was a lot, and it was asking a lot. Now that's become pretty pedestrian, and you can do that on a mobile device, depending on the level of detail. And then it was 20 kilometers, and I may show that if we have the time, that a 20-kilometer piece of road that Norconsult gave us to just experiment with. And we got a partner in Australia who wants 200 kilometers. And there's kind of no limit to that. It gets a little silly. So there's no question design and operators need to think about how they segment their data, whether that's a layering thing or a tiling thing. You do need to think about it when we're dealing with infrastructure scale, yeah. And increasing levels of detail. It used to be a gigabyte was a big BIM, and then it was 10 gigabytes, and I've seen 150 gigabytes, and that's pretty crazy.
Okay, another question on, with OpEx for clients' assets, is it the vision to use the viewer for clients' management of the built asset? And does the viewer need to be adapted depending on the stage of construction?
Could you repeat that? I'm not quite sure what the question was there.
I think it's around, are you guys planning to use the viewer for the client management of the built asset? So are you going to transfer that over to the client for them to use managing in the future, I think is what Matthew's asking.
Yeah, yes, there is some, at least in the next project, we are using the similar method on another road. There is a demand that the BIM model will be used afterwards in the maintenance and operation. And in this point, the contractor will also have the maintenance of the road in the, I don't know if it's the 5 years or 10 years after the road has been built, they will have the maintenance. So they will continue using the model there. So all the information is there, but in this particular case, we haven't added all the data necessary up till now, I think. But in the next stage or next road we're starting on now, that will be a demand from the same road authorities. So we have to do that.
Great. And then are you guys using augmented reality AR on any of your projects yet? On the handheld devices in particular?
We have experimented a bit with augmented reality. There's augmented reality and virtual reality is certainly used on this project, but not directly into the Forge, not here. We have done some proof of concept with structural reinforcement and so on, but nothing that we have done. But we have made some gamification of the bridge that we are seeing behind me and Jerry. You can drive a Tesla with through some VR glasses and drive this. You can see the videos here. So this is the bridge, like it's going to be like when it's finished. So we have done something, but it's not. There's certainly something that is coming. The demand for VR and AR on this kind of projects.
Yeah, so we in Norconsult make the game engine part of it for doing early assessments in some parts of it, and the contractor also uses the models that we make for rebar assessments and as well. So two perspectives. One is that the gamification that we do is one deliverable, and also the contractor that uses the model we make for more rebar checks and construction assessments.
Cool.
And I'd probably add, in one of your prior Forge Partner talks, Emily, when you had Insight VR on, it's funny, for design reviews, for complex situations, using VR, using Oculus Quest, that's become pretty straightforward. There's a lot of construction companies working with design firms using VR, and especially in this COVID world, as part of their design review. And it's gotten relatively cheap, integrated into BIM 360. It just kind of works. It's not a big deal anymore. It's become straight. What was 2 years ago was I hope this could work, has become, for big sophisticated customers, very straightforward. The AR side, you know, AR works really well at small scale. At big scale, it's hard. Has to do with technical problems with registration and drift, and not saying no. There are partners doing that with mobile devices. You know, Apple's been doing some unbelievable stuff with their phones and their tablets that makes AR, where you can kind of hold your tablet up and see kind of the CAD, the design overlaid on the real world. So there's definitely progress being made there, but it tends to be more kind of salesy kind of stuff at the moment. It hasn't gotten to the point where it's kind of industrial strength engineering work.
But it will soon, in your opinion?
We'll see. You know, whether it's Apple or Microsoft, they're pouring, or Facebook with Oculus, they're pouring huge amounts of money in this area. To some degree, we are on the receiving end of that bigger effort by the really big tech companies. Yeah.
Okay. Jim, do you want to? I think you have 6 minutes left. If you wanted to share another example that you had.
Yeah. So I'm gonna
jump into that.
Yeah, and given we don't have much time, I'm gonna do two examples here. And let me find my browser. Here we go. And maybe I should start with one that's reasons of planning. Where is the one I want? I should probably just click and find the right one. No, I have lots of examples of digital twin kind of stuff. Here, and this will be a good one because this is actually a piece of road that Frode gave us. So this is kind of 20 kilometers of highway, and dealing with 20 kilometers of highway in the viewer on a desktop is kind of pushing it. You know, if this was segmented down to, 5 kilometer chunks, it would probably work a whole lot better. Let me get this out of the way here. And it's still loading. It's such a big piece of highway. So this is the project that Frode and Jerry were talking about earlier. And we, just to show people what's possible on the operations, is we have at the bottom here, you can see, mile mark or kilometer markers. So here's a yellow spot over, kilometer 3. So, we hit kilometer 3. Here's, the model, and here's a picture, and, it shows potholes. Or somebody took a picture, it's not yellow or red. And, it's actually showing a real-time video feed of what's really happening. And I don't know if this real-time video feed's going, oh, there it goes. Now, this isn't actually this highway. We found the video feed somewhere else, just to make the point. The real point is, though, that this kind of very easy to understand model-based interface that allows you to get information. Here's drawing information, alignment information you might use during construction. I showed you operating. Here's red. Well, what's going on here? A little bit of a landslide. This embankment has fallen down on the model. This was built by one of my, web engineers in 2 days, using an existing model. And again, not optimized. It was just showing people what's possible. And it's actually an example like this that has gotten people like in the UK, in Australia, in the US, in Belgium, and kind of all over going, ooh, we can hook up our maintenance and operations, we can hook up our TV, we can hook up security, and we can create a single pane of glass, a single simple interface. And we can give different people different access to different information. And potentially, and again, this is an example, not optimized for mobile yet, but you'd want a version for your phone, for your tablet, if you're sitting at a desktop, so that you can, so you can manage, a piece of road. This is one of the examples. It's funny. I remember 4 or 5 years ago, somebody said, "Hey, I want to do 2 or 3 kilometers," and we were kind of struggling with it. But we've made enhancements in the viewing technology and the technology that delivers the model, that all of a sudden a couple of kilometers is not a problem. And again, 20 kilometers is kind of pushing it. It's probably, on the bleeding edge. Some kind of segmentation or tiling would probably be a good thing. But we have improvements coming that, I think by the time we get to kind of late this year, looking at, working with 20 kilometers at a time, it's absolutely something you can do. I thought I'd show one more. This is built by one of our Autodesk certified system integrators, CC Tech out of India. And this is cool. So on the left is a model, and that's kind of a Forge-powered model. On the right is a single fixed camera that's using AI to identify cars. And what's a single fixed camera, when you pipe that information into the Forge viewer, I can now change my point of view. And maybe more than that, behind the scenes, I'm actually getting data on every vehicle that I can do analytics on. I don't know, maybe I pull it into Power BI or some analytical tool I have to measure traffic patterns. But, once it's in a model, it's very computable versus, again, this still camera. And tying the two together, I think this kind of thing is cutting edge at the moment. It's not going to be cutting edge 5 years from now. It's going to be kind of normal, standard. It's how you manage, rail, roads, terminals, bridges, stations. When 2 engineers part-time in a month can hack something like this together and present it on a web page that any of you can go here, experiments.cctech.co.in, and you could kind of see what they did.
Awesome. Jim, I'm
cool.
going to have to cut you off because it's 8 o'clock, but that was some inspiring stuff to leave with. For everyone out there, the session was recorded. We're going to post it. Make sure to attend our future sessions. You'll get an email from this session with a link to the recording, as well as a link to register for any of the next webinars we have coming up. You can find all the information on our Forge blog. Thanks so much to our team from Norconsult who joined us today. Really enjoyed diving into your project. And thanks, Jim, for joining us as well and sharing a little bit more from your side, what you've been seeing.
Thank you, Emily.
Have a good day, everyone.